Two young men strike up an unlikely friendship after meeting in a support group for twinless twins. Twinless is written, directed, and starring James Sweeney and also stars Dylan O'Brien, Lauren Graham, and many more. So, Matt, what do you think of Twinless?
All right, so I think this is a film that has quite a lot to talk about. I think more than I expected. As far as first impressions go, I really, really, really love this film. But
oh, you really, really, really loved it?
Yes, I really dug this film.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm not mad.
Okay.
I just didn't know that. We don't talk about the movies a lot, so it's
Oh,
a
yeah,
surprise. Anyway.
So as you mentioned, this film is about two different twins who lost their own twins who are navigating grief together. But the film manages to take so many themes with regards to grief, twin culture, and obsession, all the while being so funny, so sad, and so unexpected at the same time. This certainly didn't turn out to be the film that I thought it was going to be, judging from the trailer. But I think the film did a really good job of, I think, sidestepping the audience's expectations. On the topic of grief, though, I love how this film not only engages with the loss of someone, but also how we can be consumed by the lack of resolution in our relationships. And that is something that the film engages with, throughout its entire runtime. And I think in so many different facets. So I'm looking forward to getting a little bit deeper into that. But the film reminded me most recently of Sorry Baby, which was another dark comedy that we just reviewed.
It was also at Sundance.
And
competitive with this film. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention, but this film won the Audience Award at Sundance.
Just to give you an idea of the competition, like Plainclothes, which is coming out soon, and Sorry Baby were some of its competition in that.
So lots of film about grief and dark humor at Sundance, and this year is no different.
Typical, yeah.
Just like Sorry Baby, though, Sorry Baby had this just absolutely brilliant and keen awareness of tone and how to balance different tones, especially when it comes to humor and tragedy. It's absolutely no different in my mind. James Sweeney, I think, did an absolutely masterful job really balancing these tones. We have lines of comedy that shift into lines of sadness and grief almost instantaneously in this film.
Yeah.
And every time I was taken back by how well it worked. So beside all that, on the topic of twins, we're lucky to have two sets of twins that we're friends with. And I think that experience comes with a little bit of knowledge into maybe twin culture or just like different things that only twins go through.
It's a unique relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, if anyone's kind of interested in that, aside from this film, I watched the Oscar Experts review, and it was only Brother Bro in it, but he talked about how specifically there's things within the film that he related to that only twins can relate to.
Yeah, I think so much comes with being twins. You were talking about this unique bond and connection that twins have. There is also, it's not even an invitation, but it's the way society puts on the comparison between two people who are twins.
Yeah, like you're the nice one, and yeah.
And it also comes with this fetishization by society of being a twin. And so I think this film really slips in so seamlessly all these unique characteristics known to only twins very well. This film likes to comment on so many of these things, as you mentioned, with like one twin being the better twin. Or in this case, there's the funeral sequence and somebody comes up and just says, wow, you look so much like him. And it's just like, oh my God, like, why are you saying that during a funeral? Yeah. But on that note, this film like has so many awkward people that just come in and say like the worst thing at the worst time.
The really funeral sequence is really funny.
Yeah. So it's, funny and sad all at the same time. So just putting all that together, I just really loved how the film balances its tones, its conversation about grief, its conversation about obsession, its conversation about twin culture. So there's really just so much built into this film. And it does it all, I think, maybe not like fully enough or fully realized enough for every single subject matter because it's fitting in so much, but well enough that you could keep up with the film and also find so much to take from it as well.
This is a film that I think we're going to have to go into spoilers fairly quickly. So I'll still talk about overall what I thought about the film, but it's going to be interesting to talk about because so much of this is wrapped up on, I think, how the story evolves. And I'll say there's a reveal that's fairly early on, about 30 minutes into the film, that is not part of the trailer. And I give them a lot of credit for not revealing that in the trailer because I think it would have been a certain hook to get people in the theater. I'm shocked at the restraint of the marketing campaign of this film. But anyway, it sets us on a journey, that twist, into, I think, a film with a considerably darker edge than its first half. And we'll reckon with this more in the spoiler section, but I'm reckoning with if I think this film would have been better if it was just a straight indie about two people who meet and heal one another when they're both going through grief. And it turns out to be a little bit of that film and a little bit of a different film. At the same time, I also have to ask myself if I'm really being fair to the movie by imposing a narrative on it that it's not totally interested in, or it is interested in a minor way, but not in a major way. So anyway, I'm thinking about that, and I think we saw this so recently that I'm parsing through like some of what I think about it. But anyway, the central performances here, if we could get into that before the spoilers.
Yeah.
I think Dylan O'Brien is really good in this movie. Like he brings this hard-edged but naturalistic sort of intimacy to his role. It's really interesting and affecting to see a character like this that has the stereotypical masculine quality but allow himself to be vulnerable enough to grieve. And O'Brien is so believable here. Like we're blessed with having a lot of straight men in our life who are emotionally intelligent and very in touch with their feelings. And just on a societal level, I think the more that we have that on screen, probably the better off we'll be. But it's balanced by Sweeney, who I think is affirming and just like naturally sweet or seemingly sweet in the film, that they have this kind of interesting dynamic to me that really works.
Yeah, I completely agree. I want to talk on the opposite end of the spectrum for both of these characters because you mentioned these positive attributes, but there are so many things lurking under the surface of these two characters, and that's what also makes their acting so great in these roles. In Dylan O'Brien's case, you can really see how broken he is as a person from this experience of losing his brother. And you can see the type of person he was kind of sitting under the surface. It comes out in certain ways when he's not, consumed by his grief. He plays that just so well and close to the chest. And James Sweeney does exactly the same thing when it comes to his insecurities, because this man is really insecure. And there are so many little ways in which this insecurity comes out. And for example, there's a particular scene where he's asking one of his coworkers for advice when it comes to a personal matter and
I love this
relationship.
scene. I've literally done this. It's just like embarrassing.
Yeah, and so he doesn't get the answer he wants. So in order to seek the validation he craves, he goes to a different coworker, which he knows will answer in the affirmative for him.
I was talking to the Splitsville review about how my laugh is like a laugh of recognition because it's just the truth. Yeah, it's a very true thing. People do that.
Yeah, but that insecurity plays a really huge role into this film, as we'll get into the spoiler section. But I agree with you. Both of these roles, they play really well. They have remarkable chemistry on screen, and there is like an intimacy that really works in this film.
Definitely. Do you have anything else to say before spoilers? All of my shit is spoilers.
I guess. Oh my gosh. I think, the rest of my stuff is spoilers.
All right. So let's go into spoilers because we have a lot to talk about. Yeah. Do you want to say what happens? You're usually better at like doing the plot than I am.
Okay.
So do you want to say what happens with a little twist here?
I mean, usually I go on ramblings about the plot. So I think this is also a great segue because we get to see Dylan O'Brien's character play both his main role in the film as Roman, but also his twin brother Rocky in the film. And this is where this twist comes into play because we take a step back, we go back in time, and we see that Dennis has gone on a date with Rocky. We become aware that, he's with the twin. We don't really know what to think at first. Then it's revealed through this experience that Rocky isn't that great of a guy. There's this exploration. I wouldn't say he's a bad person, but there is this slight exploration in gay culture of ghosting, and this movie, I think, accurately represents
very thoughtful. Yeah,
a cultural thing that I think is happening in the gay community where in the dating world, you might meet somebody and have an experience and then you completely stop talking to them and you avoid them. That is very familiar to a lot of experiences of gay people nowadays. And that is explored in this way because Rocky has this wonderful night with Dennis, and Dennis is like over the moon. He was sitting alone at a restaurant and Rocky like engaged with him and talked with him, and they had this beautiful night of passion and sex, and then they just talking under the covers. So it was really nice. And then this guy just stops talking to him.
Yeah.
And so he's wondering why. That was one of the things that he was asking his coworker about, was like, how long do I wait before I text him again? And he's like just not getting the hint that this guy's just not interested or just moved on. This turns into slight obsession for him, and he goes looking for him. And when he finds Rocky, he yells at him. Rocky turns around, starts to approach him, and that's when he gets hit by a car. And so that's when we find out that Dennis is responsible for the death of Rocky, indirectly.
Yeah.
And that's the big twist, is that Dennis does not have a twin, that he was just on one date with Roman's twin and now feels this bond or connection due to this twin culture and, I guess, obsession. And there's so many things beyond that. We'll get into it.
I'm just like somewhat wrestling with whether I like this decision or not, but it's a really deft piece of screenwriting, I would say, because it reverses your expectations in a way that's really interesting. And I'm almost like talking myself into it the more time I have away from it. But that's when the movie pivots and we start seeing a lot more from Dennis's perspective. And the film that I can most closely relate to, although he's not on the level of this person, is Passages, the Ira Sachs movie, which is about a person who is clearly very eternal and not settled with himself and manipulating other people around him in a way that's really damaging. That guy is much more damaging than this person, but it did remind me of that movie a little bit. And it gives a subtextual thriller element to a lot of the film because people start to find out, or they may be onto him in certain ways when the stories don't add up. And a lot of the tender feelings that we could be feeling are complicated by these thriller elements of when are people going to find out about Dennis's lie. So I understand that Dennis is troubled, and I certainly sympathize with him to a degree, and we get into much darker interiors here. But I think the conceit and the lie that this friendship is built on is a pretty hard thing to forgive. I'm not sure that I would be able to forgive Dennis. And at the same time, Dennis doesn't fully realize that he's trivializing Roman's grief by building this friendship on a lie. So these are all really interesting things to talk about. And the movie doesn't show its cards in saying that you should be forgiving of Dennis or you shouldn't forgive Dennis. It doesn't demonize him, and it doesn't say you should forgive him. So I think that there's a lot to talk about, and I always like coming out of a movie with a lot of questions.
Yes.
So.
No, I really love that because I think that goes into something that I wanted to talk about earlier, how someone can be consumed by the lack of resolution in their relationships. When this moment happens, we find that Dennis has that same conflict in a way. During their relationship, we learned that Roman has this unresolved conflict with Rocky because when Rocky came out, he did not respond in the best way. He responded quite toxically, actually, and that strained their relationship. And so that's something unresolved that he never got to really fix. Dennis, on the other hand, being ghosted by Rocky, he has these unresolved feelings related to that really special night that meant a lot to him. They're both dealing with this lack of resolution in different ways, but I think it's also something that binds them. And I think the movie, even though it has this twist and it seems out of place and you want to look at all of Dennis's behavior as being purely toxic, which it is in many ways, I think the film gives us a lot of detail to not absolve him of what he did, but to understand it.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
Maybe find some sort of resolution in his mistakes. He himself is going through a process of grief, and it's the grief of not having anybody at all.
Yeah.
And the film does a really good job of giving us these little kernels. One of them is when his coworker, I think it's Marcy, something like that.
Yeah.
She says he used to sit alone at she knew that he used to sit alone at the lunch table from a friend that she has that knew him in school. We get the impression that he was lonely. We hear that he is an only child. So he has no siblings at all. And it seemed like he didn't have many friends.
Yeah. And it also, I can't remember if it's explicitly revealed his family situation, but he seems to want to spend holidays with Roman.
Yeah.
Whatever you can read into that, I guess.
Yeah.
Whether it's the preponderance of jealousy or whether it's his avoiding his own family or both.
Yeah.
That's certainly in there.
So we get to see a lot more beneath the surface, a lot of this insecurity, a lot of the little details of his past that I think, start to paint the picture or put the puzzle pieces together of who he is and why he has these insecurities. The problem is that this longing for connection and this longing to have siblings or have somebody in his life, family member wise, is that this insecurity turns into obsession and this toxic behavior of lying to somebody in order to have that connection. But like I said, he does some really bad things there. I think his behavior is on the level of a narcissist, I would say, because he's trying to uphold this believability of someone that he's not. And that's something the film is reckoning with. There's one particular scene that's a really great scene where I think he mentions something to the extent of, I don't really know the type of person I'm supposed to be, or like, I don't know the person I'm supposed to put on.
Yeah, it's something like, be yourself. And he's like, which version of myself? I think it's the last scene in the movie. That is the scene where they meet for coffee quickly is like the last scene in the movie, right? So he was saying that as almost a form of an apology.
Yeah, and there's layers to that as well. A lot of gay people can attest to having to grow up and molding yourself to fit a certain box, to fit in. Once you come out, you kind of have to rediscover yourself and find out who it is you are because you've put on so many masks throughout your life. hiding that particular part of yourself.
I want to talk about the last scene a little bit, which is I think you kind of had a kernel of. And I think it's interesting because I'm not sure if these guys are going to remain friends, but it does seem like they're both on their way to healing internally, both from each other and from the other things that they're dealing with. Like Dennis has that great line that you were talking about, and it's like, does he want to be the sad, manipulative one? Does he want to be the funny guy at parties? Is he going to own the fact that he's a lonely guy and maybe come out of that, or continue to put up this front? And I think we can all identify with what he's saying here, and perhaps he's getting to like the effect that his misleading has on people that he cares about. So he tells Roman that great story that Rocky told him about how Roman broke his foot.
Yeah.
Roman tears up, and then the movie ends. And it's a lovely, sweet little ending, and it kind of reminds us about the best things of the people that we've lost. And I that really works for me. It's funny how this is becoming a common criticism, because I said the same thing about The Roses, but this is almost a tale of two movies. It's like Roman's movie of healing and Dennis's movie of holding up a lie. And I do think Dennis is clearly grieving too, but the film, I think, rightfully asks us if this explanation is enough to forgive his hurtful actions. And I don't have an answer, and neither does the film, but it was just a really good way to end it.
Yeah, I don't think the film particularly gives us an answer, but there are a few clues I want to point to in regards to that, because as I said, like the qualities that he's possessing in this film are typical of like a narcissist. But what separates him from a narcissist are these very fine details. And one of them is that when he is addressed by Marcy at work that he is holding this lie, he readily admits to it immediately, which I think is something that a narcissist would, I know narcissists,
they would
not
continue lying.
They would continue lying. They would make excuses. They would try to pin it on somebody else. And he doesn't do that here. He admits to it and he says, just please give me a little more time.
Yeah.
And he does end up coming clean to him. I mean, he's pressured a little bit by Marcy, but he does come clean to Roman and he tells him the truth.
Yeah. I mean, narcissistic qualities are really like the expounded actions of self-hate.
Yeah.
And if you're not a true narcissist, you may be able to find your ways out of narcissistic tendencies. And I think that's our character here. Whereas like the main character in Passages, I think is a true narcissist.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to change.
Yeah.
Whereas this person, I think this person, Dennis, is clearly capable of changing.
Yeah. Well, if you think of the ending to both of those movies, one is riding alone on a bike, just seemingly to nowhere.
Yeah.
And and in here we have an actual meeting
that
you talked about.
Yeah.
And this meeting offers us some clues as well. Even just before it, we see Roman in the grocery store and he looks at the lemons. You immediately think back without even saying it. You just see his look at the lemons and you immediately think back to the scene where he was kind of dumb with the
lines,
as it ripened. And then in this particular scene, there's this running joke throughout the film where somebody asks them both a question when they're out together and they both answer differently. It's like whether they want to be on the same bill when they're getting the groceries, and one's like same and then the other one's like different.
Yeah.
And in this particular final moment, they're asked a question. I think it was about taking a box home or something, or boxing something up. And they both say yes. Or whatever word they is,
that's a good point.
Right at the same time. So for the first time in this movie, it's showing synchronicity. They both showed so much honesty to each other. So I'm kind of optimistic about the relationship going forward. I know this is a really bad experience, but it's just the way that all these little tidbits are thrown at us that make me think that, oh, maybe something comes from this.
I agree with you. And I think that you just convinced me of that, actually.
Oh, okay.
So that's cool. Can I talk about a scene I really didn't like? It stuck out in this movie like a sore thumb to me, in my opinion. But there's this incident to derail the movie where Dennis gives Roman a foot massage and starts sucking on his toes, which, number one, ew. Number two, I just thought this was lazy, and I think it feeds into a straight panic that is a true thing, that if you become close friends with a gay person, that person is immediately, or is at some point going to make a move on you. And I'm just pretty sick of that. Like, it's in virtually all of queer cinema. I understand that the characters are well drawn enough that this makes sense in some context, but at the same time, it feels shoehorned in to manufacture a crisis when I feel like Roman just finding out about Dennis would have been enough. And to me, this adds to this straight panic that I think we should be actively trying to dull in that roar, so to speak, because I don't think it's a true thing. So anyway, I really didn't think that worked.
Yes, I feel that. I get that. I see what you're saying.
And it also ruined a moment that could have been like fairly innocent and touching, like where they were like affirming towards one another.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just didn't like it. I also wanted to say too that there's a lot of great visual cues in the movie. Like there's this great sequence. I don't know where they are, but they're at some place with like a bunch of things lighting up. And there's this great shot. It's actually in the trailer of Dennis in like this sea of bulbs that are lighting up. And he's like, you can tell that he's very alone and there's all of these lights going on around him. So it's almost like everyone around him is having this great life that's full of light, and he's like stuck in the middle in his own darkness. I thought that was a really cool visual sense. There's some other things too, like it's used as split screens was kind of interesting. It does it sparingly, but that was pretty cool. So yeah, I think a pretty strong visual sense for an independent film here.
Yeah, and also just the cinematography that makes me think of the way that plays into the film a little bit too. You talked about the split screen, and also the way that the film is very colorful, but also sort of it's not really desaturated. It's like uncontrasted.
Yeah, it's
So
like a little dour looking in some way.
yeah, it's like low contrast, but a lot of color. So you get the impression that everything isn't really that bright, which I think feeds into all this grief.
So you ready to go to grades?
I'm ready to go to the grades. I give the film an A-. I have really nothing to add. I hate these wrap-ups because I feel like I give my grade and then I just repeat everything I've already said. But yeah, I love how the film deals with grief. I love its balance of tones. I loved these characters and their connection to each other. I think James Sweeney did a really great job building out these characters, giving them enough detail so that you understand them, but also a little bit of a lack of detail so that you could fill in the pieces yourself. And so I really like that the film has all these things. I don't know. I really loved it.
I originally was going to give the film a B, but I actually think I'm going to give it a B+ due to our conversation. And this is like why we're married, because I'm too judgmental, and sometimes you help fill in and explain things in a way that really helps me understand people. So I felt like I understood the film better and these characters better by listening to you about it, and also it really colored in some of the intention of the film that I think I was missing when I was watching it. I think I was really derailed by the twist because I was just expecting one type of movie and it became another, and that's a little on me. So I would be really interested to rewatch this knowing where it's going.
Yes.
And I think I would like it a lot more on a second watch, because just talking about it, I liked it more than I did immediately in the theater. So yeah, I think this is really effective. I think it's a really good piece of screenwriting, and it's certainly like, say I watch it a second time and I'm still not down with the twist, it's still an interesting place to take a movie. And you can certainly tell that James Sweeney is asking a lot of complex questions about grief and about our relationship to grief and our relationship to one another when both of us are grieving. There's just a lot of good stuff here. And that's it for a review of Twinless, which is now in theater, so go check it out. Let us know what you thought of Twinless in the comments below, and we will see you next time.